So, how do we ensure that everyone in society has a fair chance and that they aren't penalized for things that are beyond their control in such a way that they become lost to society? We seem to have a lot of news reports on the increase in homelessness and desperation in different sections of American society, and the gap between the rich and the poor seems to be widening. All kinds of debates about what we should or shouldn't be approving with the as I record this, the debt and the debt limit extension being debated. And yet, we sometimes, I think, fail to stop and actually consider what are some of the questions that we perhaps ought to be asking with respect to how our system is structured. We seem to be in a position in many aspects of our budget, of the government structure, where everybody wants to retain their piece of the pie rather than simply asking if, in fact, we're slicing the correct pie. So I'd like to raise some questions about how we determine what kind of support to give and how to give that support. How can we set up a system whereby people are protected from poverty insofar as they are working to improve their condition? I don't want to talk about not supporting anybody, but I don't want to talk about supporting anybody for life who, in fact, should be able to support themselves. So, what are some things that we ought to consider or might consider as we try to determine what direction to go with the way the government supports the citizens who find themselves in need at any given time? I'd suggest that government programs should seek to address discrepancies and opportunities based on financial inequities or inequalities through distributions to those who are unable to provide for themselves. And here I'm thinking of two categories primarily. How do we reconcile public support for individuals and the families of individuals who are unable to provide for themselves? Whatever the circumstances which puts someone in a position to be totally unable to care for or provide for themselves, are individuals and families left to deal with that on their own, or do we, as a broader society, have a responsibility to try to assist individuals in providing for their own or the care of others? How do we afford every individual an equal opportunity when we are born into a world framed by the good and bad choices of our parents and their social group, luck, etc.? All of us are born into circumstances over which we have no control. Some of us are born with a silver spoon in our mouth. Some of us have no idea what a silver spoon looks like. How is it that we can make possible the American dream for everybody, irrespective of the circumstances from which they are born? How is it that we can work through the school system, through other social institutions, to help address the deficiencies that individuals might be realizing in their own personal circumstances without intruding on the rights of individuals, adults, etc., to make decisions in how they want to live their life that will have impacts on others in their life? I would suggest that government programs should afford a temporary safety net for individuals whose income is reduced below the poverty line. What about those individuals, whatever the reason, who are going through a period in which their income is either less than needed or is lost altogether? Certain things we can try to budget for and provide for, other things may be beyond our ability to control. None of us expects to be in a position where we can't provide for ourselves, but all of us may find ourselves in a position whereby we can't provide for ourselves. Is there a way that we can provide some kind of security, basic security, so that one's needs are met in the context in which one is seeking to change one's circumstances for the better through education, new job, whatever the case might be? Government programs should seek to address the basic needs of children whose parents have not been able to meet those needs. Again, nobody controls the context into which they were born. Some parents, for whatever reason, have not been able to perhaps provide certain basic needs, their needs that we would all agree are basic: food, shelter, clothing, etc. Are there aspects of care, of child care, that we can, as a society, provide assistance for while still avoiding any sense of dependency on government assistance? Perhaps lunch programs through schools or other venues. This is an issue that came to the forefront during the pandemic when schools were closed. Proper educational opportunities, having schools accessible to individuals that are actually providing a quality education, and even more than that, books and educational materials in the home. What are we doing to help people realize the benefit of, and if they do realize it, being able to afford actually having a bookshelf with books for the children in the home, actually having opportunities for kids to draw and scribble and use scrap paper in a way that recognizes that talent is developed through practice, skill is developed through practice. How many children simply don't have what most of us probably take for granted? That is paper and pencils and just an opportunity to doodle until we either develop a skill and realize an interest we didn't know about or realize that our interests lie elsewhere. In the end, government programs should not result in a self-serving bureaucracy. I think one of the issues that we fail to take honest account of is that everybody wants to succeed, however they define success, and financial security is a big part of success, whatever level of income you need to define as being financially secure. The degree to which government programs are instituted to provide aid to people with the hope that they will leave those government programs, one would hope that government programs actually have a life expectancy, that they would in fact come to an end because the aid is no longer needed, the need has been met. The degree to which people are afraid that if a need has been met, they've lost their job, that creates a conflict on the part of the individual and the government and the people, society as a whole. So the degree to which we have programs that are simply being perpetuated with the goal of perhaps unconsciously allowing people to stay employed rather than actually meeting the need for which that program was designed is something that we need to do an audit review of to consider if in fact we have programs in place that ought to be in place. Providing assistance for a better tomorrow. What if we targeted individuals with a specific dollar figure based on their income level rather than programs for different life expenses? One of the things that I became aware of in particular when we were trying to assist my mother-in-law during her final years was the paperwork and just the sheer volume of material one has to work through in order to seek assistance. And so I would suggest that rather than trying to have a different program for every aspect of life, food, shelter, clothing, whatever it might be, that we in fact simply recognize that people have different preferences, different desires, so that however we frame our basic needs, our concept of need, people will use their resources in different ways. If we are simply seeking to ensure that people have at least a minimum income to meet the generally accepted needs of an individual or of a family, then how that individual or family actually uses those funds is up to them. But this comes with a small caveat. What if the dollar figure were based on their income using their tax filings against a 3-year average for median individual and household incomes paid out in monthly increments? In other words, every year when taxes are filed, without filling out a whole bunch of additional paperwork, it would be obvious if in fact your income is less than or greater than the median income of the previous 3 years. And then automatically, the difference between your income and the median income would be divided by 12, and you'd be receiving a monthly payment in that amount until the next year's tax filing and the calculations were done again. The degree to which all this is just done automatically without having all kinds of paperwork to fill out, you've eliminated a whole lot of bureaucracy and time and headache on the part of all the individuals involved. What if payments were guaranteed for the year, irrespective of income changes during the year, as income changes are then reflected in the next year's tax returns? In other words, if you've been experimenting and trying to develop the product for the market, and that has impacted your actual income because in the context of experimenting, you're not really making much money, but then you hit it big in February or March or August or whatever, and all of a sudden you're a millionaire overnight, rather than trying to simply every month validate your need for income, etc. The income is based on the previous year's income. Those checks stay the same, but when you fill out your tax returns for the next year and reflect that you hit it big, then you no longer receive that. But you aren't having, and the government isn't constantly worried about filling out paperwork to try to justify or validate that, yes, I still need and am due this assistance. But what if there were a lifetime cap on payments equal to 50% of the median income for an individual's age bracket? In other words, at any given stage in life, it can be calculated what the median income is for your age bracket and the median income for your age bracket up to that point in life. So how do we calculate and set up an assistance plan in such a way that you are, in fact, going to be given some measure of assistance during those years when your income is less than the median income? But if you refuse to take those steps that are necessary to secure a gainful employment so that you can earn the median income, then you're going to have to ultimately live with those choices. And the government isn't going to be perpetually providing income supplement for you. What if we define a household as a number of individuals 18 or older whose incomes are combined to support the activities of everyone occupying the same residence? In other words, and this is one area that is confusing to me sometimes when we talk about household income or individual income, median household, median individual. Back when the majority of people were part of mom, dad, children framework, the nuclear family, traditional nuclear family, it seemed easier perhaps to base everything on a household income, as that covered most of the people in America living in a traditional household. The degree to which the traditional household framework has shifted to other frameworks, perhaps we no longer need to look so much at household income as simply individual income for determining what kind of assistance is provided. What if we treated everyone under 18 in a residence as children for the purpose of allocating fiscal assistance to children? And I'll address that in particular, what that might look like here in a minute. And what if fiscal assistance for a child terminated the month after the child turned 18, at which point the individual's income would be calculated as part of the household? Again, household or individual, either way, the month the child turns 18 is considered an adult. Then the next month, there would be no more child payments. But at 18, the child is presumably, the young adult, having graduated or on the verge of graduating from high school, is going to be or is already gainfully employed and becomes part of the adult population, which factors into calculating the income and whether assistance will continue to be provided to that individual. What if the target income were 50% of the median household income for the previous year? What if the target income were 50% of the median individual income for the previous year? Again, trying to determine whether we're talking about this at a household level or an individual level is one of the things that ought to be taken into account. And what if we went to a different direction? What if the target income were the poverty level plus 50% for the poverty level for the household? The whole poverty, what is poverty level? That's a whole separate debate, how to determine that. There have been various uh, approaches or efforts to define poverty over the years. It's kind of one of those things where people know it when they see it, even if you don't have a hard and fast figure for it. An income in Southeast Texas that may register as a poverty income may be pretty good in another place in these states. But an income in California that registers as poverty may in fact be a pretty standard middle class income in other parts of the states. So how do we determine what income levels we're targeting, whether we're going to base it off median income levels or a poverty measurement? What if the target income included a fixed amount per child based on the amount above or below the median household income? In other words, the degree to which we are providing assistance for children specifically, is that part of the income of a household or is that separate from the income of the household? What if the fixed amount per child was in addition to the target income for that household? And here we're calculating the target income without taking into account any income that is a result of support for children, raising the children. And this is an issue, again, that came up in particular during the pandemic when the child tax credit resulted in, I think, a 40% decrease in the number of children living in poverty. And so, to what degree do we want to be attempting to secure or provide financial security for children in conditions in which the parents may not have made the best choices with respect to how life ought to be lived, particularly when it comes to providing and securing a financial position in life? So these are all questions that I'm just raising to try to think about over 26% of our federal budget, whether we're allocating funds properly, whether the funds that are being allocated are in fact necessary to be allocated in order to actually provide assistance to those who have need. Thank you very much.